Let's talk
Relationships on UMERADIO.
So what are we talking about?
Marriage, dating, parenting, business,
And love, emotions, sex.
it's a conversation with me, Lady Misty,
And DJ KTE.
on everything from hot topics to taboos.
Join us Mondays at 9 p.m. live on UMERADIO.
Follow us at Let's Talk Relationships Show on Facebook or on UMERADIO on Instagram. Let's talk relationships, arguments for the grown.
Get the UMERADIO app to listen wherever you are. That is UMERADIO, one word.
UME Radio. Positive entertainment 24/7. Subscribe on YouTube and click the notification bell.
I want to say welcome to those who are joining us live on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. And thank you so much for keeping our company tonight.
Yeah.
So tonight we have Pastor Justin Francis, and he's known as a great musician. He's a pastor, he's a preacher, he's a servant of Christ, he is a husband, and he's here also to give his say in what he thinks separation is all about. We have tonight also Mr. Barry Hibbert. He is a physical therapist and business owner, and he's gonna put in his 2 cents. Also, we have Davian Forbes. He's an entrepreneur and photographer. We also have with us tonight Mr. Philroy Facey, CEO of Dr. Phil Entertainment.
All right, we have 2 Dr. Phils now.
Yes, joining the table as well is Tyrone Shaw, and he's part owner of RTSS Courier and Shipping. And we're going to be talking to these men tonight. We have a musician in the house, so we have producer, musician, and entrepreneur Gary Higgins.
Yeah.
So we have a full table tonight.
Yes.
Good night, gentlemen. I hope you can hear me.
Can you guys hear us okay?
You?
Night.
There we go.
Night.
If you hear us say rumble, hey. Come on, guys. Yes.
Hey, Rumble.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
That sounds like a lot of testosterone in the building.
Real men here, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Rumble.
Good. How are you feeling tonight, guys? How are you doing?
Big up.
Yes, love it. All right.
There you are.
Ah.
Good. How are you doing tonight, guys? You're feeling okay?
Yes.
Anybody has a strong drink with them ready to talk to me tonight?
I sure do.
I see. Feel
Whatever you say, don't say Corona, okay?
Sanitize that.
Get some liquid goods up in here. Yes, sir.
So, gentlemen, tonight we are going to be we're going to be dissecting as best as we can the topic of separation. So, let me start with this question, and I'm throwing it men in the room, including my co-host. What goes through your mind when you know there is a separation coming the relationship mind as men?
For those who were married or in a relationship or it was coming, hey, what were your thoughts, man?
What was it? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Yeah, I was asking what goes through your mind. The first thing that goes through your mind when you know that there's a separation coming. when you see that, hey, I think that there is a separation brewing, what goes through your mind?
Oh, well,
Ooh, and
as
all my
far
men are quiet tonight. What's happening?
No, the thing is, no, the thing is,
So guys, in other words,
probably need to.
the lady said to you, "I'm leaving," but this time it felt real. It was
Yeah,
like
this time
last
it's
year.
real. I'm not
This was
coming
like, you know
back.
what? She's for real now. This right here sounds real. That
I
kind
think
of thing. Mhm.
I think what you need to do, one of the hosts need to actually address each person because it can become a chorus real quick. So then it flows a bit better.
All
So
right,
you mean
since you're
okay? All right.
okay, so since you're talking, Davian, what goes through your mind?
You're picking him now, right?
So, yeah.
That's how you
I don't have a
do.
lot of don't have a whole lot of relationship experience, but I did have
Okay.
plenty enough relationship.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think what goes through the mind is along the lines of, all right, wow, this is real right now. How can I, is it possible for me to fix this? And if so, what are the steps that we need to take? You get me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you see where it's too much of an uphill task, then are you going to throw in the towel
Yeah.
or are you going to drag the dead horse?
Mm.
You get me? So it's I
Gotcha.
think those are the things that kind of go through one's head during a situation as such. Well, at least for me.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
I can, for what Davian said, I can just add to that also. Because for
Mm-hmm.
me, the first thing that came to mind is the kids. Like, okay, the kids. And then you
Okay.
like, how can I fix this now? Can I fix it? Is it too late? Um,
Mm-hmm.
all the troubles you have to go through to what you're gonna be doing after this. Everything just boom, hit you right there.
Okay.
Like reality struck.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone has said. I probably would be thinking about um, what did I do to mess this up this time? Trying to backtrack. Like, man, how did it get to this point? How did it get this bad?
Mm.
Yeah, so I'll
Right.
probably be thinking some self-reflection. Like, man, where did I go wrong?
Gotcha.
What about you, Barry?
yeah, as far as I'm concerned, it's a really touchy subject because it happened to me, and at the time when my ex-wife came to me and she told me, I never forget when she looked at me in the kitchen and she said to me, "It's over," and
Wow.
it was like, okay, I'm looking back and I'm looking behind her and I see my three kids sitting on the floor, and it was a surreal thing came to me, like, like, what did I do? How did I go wrong? How I took this lady for granted, and I was trying to think of all the things in my head of, boy, what did I do wrong to this lady? How could I make it up? And there's a song that R. Kelly sings that said, "When a woman is fed up," and there's nothing you could do about it. And that's the point that I reached with my ex-wife at the time. So it was really, it's like my heart was pounding. The whole world was tumbling down on me at the moment. I felt like I'm losing everything. Everything that I work for, I'm losing it. The home, the family, life. And that's a thing I would never wish on anyone to experience. That very moment, that was one of the worst feelings of my life ever. I don't think I've ever had
Wow.
anything hurt more than that before. So yeah,
Wow.
that's what I was going through at that moment.
Wow.
That's heavy
Yeah.
stuff.
Funny
Gary?
enough, for many people, that's not the time when reality hits, because that's like, oh, all right, for many guys, it's like the first part is probably easy, and then it really hits, and you're like, all right, well, ooh, all right, this is real.
It's a real deal.
You get me? You get me? And I mean, I don't have any kids, but on a positive note, like, many people stay together for the kids, and as I said, I don't have kids, so I may not be in a position to speak on such, but I think a lot of times, like, the kids get more hurt when you stay together just for the kids, because if you're staying together just for the kids, it's kind of pointless. You get me? Like, move on and try to get something better for the kids in general, because if you're staying together for the kids, it's really not going to go anywhere. From based on what I've seen and what I've read, I've never been there, but truly.
All right. I want to hear from Philroy. What do you think?
I was hoping I'd escape, you know.
No escape, Mr. Phil. No escape, Mr. Phil.
You just escape in the shadows.
Not this one. Not this one, Mr. Phil.
I want to agree with a lot of what has already been said.
Uh-huh.
As a man hearing that, one of the things I know is that if you're now hearing that from your wife, chances are that relationship went dead 3, 4, 5 months ago. He already left.
I agree.
Because at the point when you're being told in a way where you're realizing that it is serious, it means that this is no longer the heated argument when, you know, me I go left, me done, me can't bother. It is not in those moments that it strikes. It is in that moment when you sit to talk and you're just told. At that point, it meant that she has already gone over this in her head time and time again. It also means that she has already made a lot of effort to show you that this is what is coming. And a lot of us as men are very blind to these signs. We get all the warnings most of the times and we just ignore it. For whatever reason. Maybe we just know why you're properly, we don't know. Maybe we're just blind. Maybe we just don't think that's gonna happen. But it does, right? And so we get blind, not necessarily blindsided, but at the point when your wife is going to have a sit down to say this to you, it would have meant that she basically have already made up her mind.
Right.
And at that point, trust me, I think somebody said it earlier, but that like the world is now, you know, almost can't describe it. It poses another challenge too when I think it was let me see if I see the name, Davian was talking about a while ago. He says he doesn't have kids, but from what he has seen and what he has, you know, read and all of that, and I can the kids being a part of it makes it 1,000 times more difficult, because the truth is you never went in to get out like that, right?
Right.
So, and then when kids become a part of it, even if you both of you as adults want to deal with this as amicable as possible, there is always the challenge of what happens with the kids. And if there is any form of selfishness, then all that friendliness and all that amicable resolution starts to go through the window and people start to get bitter and all of this. And so it makes it even more difficult when kids are involved. And I believe that is why sometimes you have some persons resort to just staying together for the kids' sake, because they realize that it's going to be a hell of a road. And the truth is that there's also statistics to say when these people, even if they stay together because of the kids, they sometimes find a way back together. So it's a very unique. Each one is unique in its own way, and has to be treated on its merits accordingly based on the persons involved.
Interesting.
Go ahead.
It's so interesting that he just said that, because I think throughout my time, I think that's what I thought, because I remember my mother-in-law looked at me one day and said to me, oh, you have 3 kids for her, she's not going nowhere. So I kind of took that in my head and I said, okay, I'm safe.
That's it.
Because we have kids. You know what I mean? So you get comfortable. You know what I mean? You get, okay, she's not going nowhere. No matter what you throw at her, she's not going anywhere, because she has 3 children. No man gonna want her afterwards. You locked it in. Everything is good.
Big
not
mistake.
realizing it's not that way at all.
No.
It's not that way. It's not that way at all.
Gary,
I think
Gary, let me give Mr. Gary Higgins.
Okay.
Sorry, David.
One of the things that I think we miss in relationship is that we have to treat the family life separate from the married life. We have to find a way to balance both, and service both. And that is where a lot of the challenges comes in sometimes, where the family life is being, looked at more than the marriage itself. And the truth is that whilst they're in the same space, there are two separate organisms that needed to breathe life into them in separate ways for them to survive. And so you find a lot of couples, once the kids reach that age where they move out, it's like they don't know each other anymore, because I didn't know you without the kid.
Funny story.
Right.
That's a great point, because you know what? I've heard great husband, terrible dad. And I've heard terrible dad, or great dad, but terrible husband.
Definitely.
So you find that can be an interesting dynamic. But let me ask Gary to jump in here. He's been pretty quiet so far. So let's hear your thoughts, Mr. Higgins.
Okay. In the meantime,
there we go. That's it.
That's the musician. Yes.
So, man, this question for me,
it's a big one.
It was freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Separation for me in the case of marriage was like it was freedom.
That's interesting. I want to hear about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sing it, brother.
Yeah,
I want to hear that song.
No,
I want to hear that tune.
That threw me way off, because all these other men are saying to me, oh my God, it hurt me, like, yeah. And then here comes this guy saying it was freedom. So I want to hear about it.
Freedom. Okay, Gary. Good.
I want to hear about it.
I guess I'm officially the party pooper, huh? But
no.
and for me, it was freedom, and I say that because one of the things I believe is not necessarily often identified, especially in the case of marriage, is what came first. Is it purpose as it pertains to your God-given purpose, and or marriage? You know what I mean? And for me, how do I put this? I what actually determines the marriage? Is it the ring, the sermon, or what makes a wife a wife? Is it the ring? What made the marriage? Is it the sermon, or is it your function as it pertains to that moment of union, so to speak? So for me, first year into, I would say maybe courting or talking to the person that I was married to. I like around the 1 year mark, I was already functioning like a husband, but without, a ring. Yeah. So, I was already doing things. She had 4 children. 3 of them were living with her. The youngest was like 1.5, around there.
Okay.
You're a superhero, man.
Just about, learning to walk, I would say. That kind of situation. The second to last child was about 5, and the one before that child was about 15. Yeah, about 15. The girl, she was older.
That's
She was
interesting.
already, yeah, she was already, I think she was like living with her grandmother or something like that. But she wasn't living with her, you know, biological mom at the time.
Okay.
And, you know, so 5 years pre-marriage, and, you know, I would say another 6 post
Okay.
married. And, you know, so I think the purpose of the marriage is what I think oftentimes is not necessarily being paid attention to. And people tend to go for, you know, things that they may desire, or, you know, wanted the marriage to be something that is from their perspective of what they think a marriage should be. For me, it, you know, as far as the Bible is concerned, it says, you know, the purpose of a wife is to be a helpmate. And, you know, for a lot of wives, I don't think that's necessarily in the forefront of their thought process, you know, when they're thinking marriage. Some people it's a fantasy, some financial security, some it's because, you know, they don't want to burn. But you can be married and still be lonely, you know.
Very
But
true.
for the, you know, for the most part, I felt like my purpose was being sacrificed, you know. As you guys, you know, are aware, I'm more of an entrepreneur. I don't know what it's like to have a 9 to 5 or do a job interview. You know, what I know for the most part has been kind of like, you know, music, and that's what I've lived by. Not something I call myself to, because I've tried to put it aside maybe twice, and I don't want to feel like that again, because I think that gave me an idea of how people feel when they commit suicide or contemplate suicide, and that's like existing without purpose. So, you know, I would say if you're a intercessor and, you know, you are being restricted from, you know, interceding, or if you're a, you know, a minister or a pastor and you're being restricted from imparting what you believe God has, you know, laid on your heart to, you know, his people, then you're going to have a very unfulfilled, you know, experience, you know, while living.
So Gary, I mean, that's a mouthful there. Quite a bit you're saying. But my thinking is this: you mentioned purpose, right? Now, going into marriage, and you mentioned about 5 years dating, and, you know, playing the role of a married person, right? Correct. So how then? Where was purpose at that point? Because I think that a lot of times when we look at purpose as too compartmentalizing. You know, in other words, I got my garage business or my car business, so I'm gonna fit in this right in here. I'm gonna fit this right here. I'm gonna fit this right here to work at my car business. Opposed to when I'm going into this business, how was the mindset of the person? Where were they at? Did they understand the concept of what it is to actually be in that role of a wife? Because I think as males, we're like a covering, and we're supposed to provide guidance, and we're supposed to provide vision for that household. So then how did she view that as far as being in alignment with you, to where that apparently came out of alignment? Was it ever there, or were you aware that it wasn't there? Was that a mistake you made by not ensuring initially that we were a purpose to be together? How do you when did that come to your mind as purpose? When did that make sense to you? Was it before you dating, while you were dating, or after marriage, or after the divorce?
It was always present, so I would say all the above. It still hasn't changed for me. If anything, it has, probably, I would say, encouraged me even more. Because I mean, you've seen where this conversation went. It went left field when
No, actually, no. It's what you're bringing. I mean, that's your experience.
So right.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Everything I said to my wife at the time before marriage, it's everything that happened took place. Everything that I said would take place if certain things weren't, in perspective. But one of the issues that I've noticed is that, a lot of times submission is like a curse word. When you talk about submission, and my wife would, submit, wife submit to your husband, and she would always say, husband love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave of himself. But what is the measuring tool for that love? What does it look like? Did Christ compromise his standard? Did he have no expectation? Did he lose himself in the process of loving the church?
But Gary, that's an interesting point. But I'm going to ask Mr. Justin, Pastor Justin Francis. He's a pastor. I believe you're married as well, sir. And you're married. So I know ministry of itself have a lot of dynamics to it and can be very challenging as well. So how did you find yourself with your spouse in alignment in ministry? How did you navigate that?
Yeah. And Gary, man, I feel you, bro. I'm not in that situation, but you definitely, even if you think it went left, this is some good stuff. Like it's good to have the whole well-rounded picture of what really goes down, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not all roses and everything. So yeah, I've been married 5 years, and I think for us that one thing that helped that maybe a lot of people overlook is having that community. The old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Back in the day, you get in trouble in school, your teacher could whoop you. You know what I'm saying? And then your grandma whoop you, and then by the time mom and dad get home, they whoop you too. You know what I'm saying? You're getting it from all different places. And I think having that body, that church, the mentors, all that around, that helped us to have other folk, premarital counseling. And that doesn't mean it goes perfect. It doesn't mean it's the solution for everything. But for us, I can only speak for us, we had many layers of accountability, many layers of help on our way to marriage. That kind of gave us a lot of advice. And I don't know Gary's story, but I know a lot of people jump right in like, oh, I love you, so let's do it. In 30 days of me and you, I'm gonna marry you. And then a lot of people ignore red flags and they think that people can change. And I'm a big fan of the show Divorce Court. I know some of y'all probably watched it. Well, I've learned a lot from that show. One of the biggest things
it is informative.
It's very informative of what not
to do.
It's like, all right, I'm gonna not do that. And some people, they do everything right and it still could go left. But I know for us, like I said, the question is about for us. We even do after marriage, we still do counseling, to keep it going. So being proactive rather than waiting for stuff to start going bad, and then when we're on life support, then we want to seek the help, because it takes humility to say, hey, bro, man, we're in a tough place, or man, I messed up. So having those outside people, and then you gotta be wise. Some outside people, they're trying to control you, or they give you toxic information. So you gotta, be able to discern, who has your best interest, and then having multiple people who are at a place that you want to be. I knew one dude, man, he was married 2-3 times. He's like, hey, man, you should let me do your premarital counseling. I'm like, bro, you've been married 3 times. You need to do my premarital counseling and go sit down, bro. I'm sorry. I'll go to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So, by God's grace, my parents been married over 40 years, you know what I'm saying? And I had multiple people that, you know, I was sitting under and hearing from them. So that's what helped us.
I'm gonna be. I thank you. Thank you for that, Pastor Francis. I'm gonna be transparent here. So, guys, you may want to take your handkerchief because you may be crying. Because I'm gonna go real deep. I'm gonna get real transparent. But hey, I was married 18 years, and love my wife, love my family, and I realized that we men have a real issue with listening. And listening effectively, listening. That's another issue we have as well. We have a gift that God gave us, and it's almost like blinders that's needed sometimes because you can always listen. If you always listen, you may get sidetracked. There's time you got to close out and just move. But in my case, I was trying to be the hero, and I mean, no job was too far to drive to. You know, whether I'd work day shift, night shift, overnight shift, whatever it took to, you know, to let my family feel comfortable. And I have made moves like certain geographical movements, probably prematurely trying to keep the wife happy. So I realized that when it came to the point of where she was fed up, as R. Kelly say, when a woman's fed up, you know, that was it. No, and I said, you know what, Mr. Barry, she's done. She's there. Of course, the first thing that came to my mind, gentlemen, was the kids. Like, I have young kids, man. My goodness. You know, I'm a family man. My mom and dad, we had 7 kids, married for 30, 40 years. I mean, you know, just kept on going. So I really wanted to have a marriage that would last. You know, grew up in church. And I've seen that kind of thing. And of course, even back then, when couples had their issues and their problems, they tend to stick together. So it's like, you know, it seems like these days, we're not happy, leave. You're not happy, let's go. Man, don't hang around.
I have quite a few notes to drop in that kind of old days versus no kind of scenario. But when you're here.
Yes. I'm going to keep it short. So to make a long story short, guys, you know, it came to a point where we did decide to get divorced. I think I was very mature about it. I wasn't aggressive, loud, and mean kind of person. I was very methodical. I was very, I would say, understanding. Probably didn't make any sense. People were like, wow, you know, you guys getting divorced. I mean, there's no fuss fighting. Went to the same church for a while, you know. Kids were there together. You would never think we're getting divorced. We went to even the separation court where we had to go to a process of getting divorced and take those classes as parental classes. And they were like, you guys get divorced? We just didn't look like we were. We were just like silly and, but there was a understanding that it had breached. Something happened where there was a crack, and we were like, you know what? I think it's better off if we move on separate ways. I was hurt. I remember one day when I first heard the news, I went to church. I called my wife up to the stand and said, hey, I literally knelt down in front of the entire church. Please, whatever it is, you know, I mean, whatever. And, you know, I asked her to forgive me, whatever I did, you know, even if she chose to move on, but I wanted the words to know, listen to me, I really didn't come true for you the way I probably could have or should have. And I mean, after church, man, the men were bawling, the ladies were bawling. It was like, oh Jesus, this guy is crazy. But I understood that she needed her freedom, and it came to a point where I only felt bad because I kept her unhappy for so long, not knowing how bad it was. Because I felt I was just doing great. I didn't feel her pain the way I was. And again, I guess I wasn't listening to her the way I was when she was crying out. And I probably didn't know how to. So I think as men, that's something that we want to really pay attention to, how we listen to the woman, because we can have a story, but I always believe in saying, what do you think? Not just what I think or feel, but what are you really saying? What are you thinking about this situation here, about me? Be vulnerable to feel that and feel the hurt of that. And say, wow, you know, that's what she really feels. That's her experience. Don't diminish it. Don't deny it. Don't water it down. and get into that a space where she at least know that she's been hurt, you know, and that's kind of where it was. But I'll leave it there for now and come back to later on with some more stuff. But you were saying something on Mr.
Yeah, Davian was about to say
was saying
something. Go ahead, Davian.
Yeah, all right. So I agree. A lot of times we just listen to reply or to respond, and we don't listen with understanding. You get me? And that's probably one of the biggest issues. I know I'm young and everything, but age don't really say a lot about a lot of things, and that's why I'm saying, like, it's a lot of times we tend to compare relationships now to relationships back in the day, and we like to say, oh, like relationships are not what they used to be and whatever. But the times have changed so much. There's so much that we know now. You get me? So a lot of relationships that we thought were so amazing, they were actually trash relationships. They just had a lot of years on them. You get
me? They weren't happily lived.
You get me? So like a lot of times, like I'm not religious, by the way. So I hope I don't offend anybody. But like a lot of things, like the way the Bible wants you to do a lot of things, you have to kind of update those with the time, because they're kind of one-sided. You get me? So I don't remember who said like the wife should be a certain way and so on. Like a lot of those have changed because the times have changed, where back in the day a wife was merely a homemaker and like a person who was supposed to bring the children and whatever, and the husband would work. Yeah, you get me? Like the dynamic was so different. I don't think with my mindset I would make a good husband back in the day, because I'm too fair. I see things down the middle, and my reasoning is just way different. You get me? So it's all about I am the head and whatnot. Like I've seen situations where you, like, in the household, the men or the man, the head, get fed first. For me personally, my children will get fed first for me. You get me? Because I can bear hunger, and they can't. You get me? Like they will be at the forefront in a lot of things. You get me? As I said, the dynamics from back in the day versus now, you can't compare them apple for apple, honestly, because it's a whole different thing. For example, even communication. Back in the day, your grandma used to see your grandpa once a day, probably once a week, church, Sunday. You get me? Now we can talk 24/7. So your relationship from back in the day that you spent 5 years doing, I can get there in 5 months based on communication.
I think it's frozen.
Yeah,
pick it up.
it's frozen.
Pick it up.
Yeah, I have a question. I have a question though. I have a couple of questions. I wanted you guys to finish.
Sorry,
but I have a couple of questions. Yes, Davian. All right. Finish your thought and then I'll ask my questions.
Oh no, I'll just finish by saying, like, women back in the day and women now are quite different. For example, a woman back in the day probably would stay and be cheated on and so on. Nowadays, if you're born or share born never.
Gotcha.
All right, I have a few questions. I have 2 questions that came in from our viewers, and I have a question that I want. Well, a couple of questions that I want to ask. Seeing that I'm the only woman in the room, you know, and
we're gonna get you. We're gonna get you. Watch
it now. Right. So, in terms of separation, and I want to ask each of the men in here this question. All right. So I heard Philroy in his statements when he was speaking, talking about men being blind and so on to signs. So my question is, for those who have been separated, those who have gone through that, even if you're married now, I'm sure that it was a relationship before where you broke off for some reason or whatever. So you have some perspective on what I'm about to ask. is it that there were signs there that you did not see? Did it catch you by surprise? Or was it like, okay, I knew this was coming and let's just do this?
Wow.
So
Okay.
when a woman comes to you and say, um, it's over, it's done, and like Philroy said, it usually happens that way. We usually go through this over in our minds and say, all right, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to do this? And then we see where there is no point when a woman's fed up, of course. So is it a case where you did not see the signs? You didn't pay attention to the signs? Did you see the signs and did not care? Or you thought everything was going fine?
Well, let's hear
All
what,
and dandy.
let's see what the man have to say about this one
So,
here.
yeah.
For me, I spend most of my time away. I work on a cruise ship for a while, so it was a little bit difficult. But coming home, for me, I only spent roughly 2 months. Coming home, I saw the signs. I noticed the late coming in from work. Can't talk now. Too busy. Yeah, it goes on. So I saw the signs. I ignored them at a point. Like, okay, maybe was misjudging or something. So let me see. Then I realized, oh, okay, let me try this again. You see the same signs coming back, and then it doesn't stop there. It starts to get worse because knowing the person, they will never go out, leave you. Wherever you go, it's just you and this person. Then all of a sudden, okay, I don't want to go out. I just need some time with myself. I was like, okay. So then you start to see the warning signs coming. But after it a while, because it was hard for me to balance my relationship with work, because I'm only here for 2 months, sometimes 1.5.
Well, my brother, I don't know. I'm not sure what we're thinking, but to actually go on a cruise ship to work, and you're married, you must be a tough dude, because that right there is a recipe for disaster, my friend.
Yes.
You know, in many cases. So how did you actually decide to go on?
80% of these guys' relationships are.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah. Were you doing the cruise before you married her, or was it after you got married?
No, yes. Actually, I was doing it before.
Oh, and she understood it. That was a part of what your life was. Was that communicate to her properly? And was okay, honey? You can go with 2 years. I'm okay. I love you. Anyway, you're my prince. I'll let you come back home. Was it like that, or what?
Yeah, it started off. Well, it was a good one. Yes. Okay. Until 2-3 years down the line, it became a disaster. Believe me.
Wow.
I'm gonna be short, but I can tell you, it reached a point where my performance at work was going down. The company demands so much from you, then you have your own issue to deal with. It wasn't good. And the worst part of it is coming home. Usually it was fun for you to come home excited, you know, and then when you come home, you're like, Jesus Christ, what did I get myself into? Then the shit becomes your job becomes your safe haven. You can't wait to leave, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
But yes, you see the sign, but you try to fix them, but it was just too late. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I want to go around the table, so let's hear from somebody else.
Can I jump in right here?
Yeah, man.
Go ahead.
Go right ahead.
All right. And I got a glimpse. I wanted to say something, and then I got a glimpse of a comment being made, and it just falls right in line with what I wanted to say.
All right, go ahead.
Today, if you go in the average pharmacy today, and you go around to the book section, there is about if the pharmacy has 3 shelves, 2.5 or 2 3/4, no, 2.5. The 2 shelves are for books about women. Half of the other shelf is for children and kids or something. And then another half of the half that is left is for gifts. And then there's probably one book on there on men. I'm more than likely that one book talk about Viagra. Just say it. So there is no emphasis. There is no emphasis being placed on how to be a man, how to be a husband. I can speak for myself, and this is my truth. Growing up, I grew up in church, and forgive me, Lord, if I rub any of the deacons or any of the ministers in my church. Just forgive me. But growing up in my church, outside of my father and what I saw him doing, as a man, I cannot remember an experience with another man in the church as older men over you, men that you look up to. Take it to the side, tell you about life, tell you about some of the things to expect and some of the ways in which you can navigate life as a young man growing up. And I'm saying the book that we're supposed to be guided by says that you're supposed to take us and teach us as young men. And they're not doing this very basic command. And then when the young men falter, they are sometimes the first one to come to drop, whip over your back. Where were you before you stepped in this hole? I know that we step in the hole and we're learning from our own mistakes. You're still coming at us again. Not even at that point, you know how to teach us either. It is still me did know a long time and me did expect and me as where is that love and where is that teaching for men to know how to be husband and how to be men? The truth is that a lot of men don't even know what is a man, what it is to be a man. A lot of what we know now is what we are taught or what we pick up from music and movies.
So you would say so you could say that it's systematic. It's systemic. So the older men or the great great grandfather, what is it didn't come down the correct way in many aspects of it. So of course we know we are a recipient of this, lack of knowledge.
Yes,
and it's true. It is true, and oftentimes, yeah. Go ahead.
And I'll use an example, and I'm going to speak for myself. I'm going to use myself as an example as much as I can. I recall I think I had to have this conversation with my wife where I had to tell her that I have to make a deliberate effort to say to my son, "I love you,"
That's good.
Because you have almost been cultured, like, as much as it's your baby and it's a little baby, it's still a boy. I want to tell a boy say you love him, I want to say to a man say you love him. On top of that, whilst I know that my father loved me and whilst I know that he has done and continues to do everything that he can for me as his son, and that's how he shows his love, they've not really say it. They've never really say it. And so you didn't grow up knowing how to say it. And so now, as a young man who has become a family man, a father, I have to make a deliberate attempt and effort to say to my son, "I love you," to kiss him on the forehead, and to let him, see that him father feel fatherly love. And the same thing with my daughter. I have to now make that effort. Who is there teaching us these things consistently so that it can become a part of us as young men?
Wow, powerful words.
You have a women conference 6 times before the year done, and you probably have a half-hour man conference. Men, half. And I say half because even when you do have a conversation or a conference, you get some sugar-coated arguments, some pretty arguments that it's not real. It's not the real stuff. You are saying, but this is not what I'm experiencing. And what you're telling me, this, these pretty words that you're telling me really don't help with how I am truly feeling.
Yeah.
And so I believe that there really needs to be a more deliberate and targeted effort towards our men, our young men, for them to better understand what is expected of them as a man, as opposed to what is expected of them as a husband.
You see, Dr. Phil?
A mother teaches her daughter how to be a woman.
Yeah.
The man, what we learn from our fathers is that you must provide and protect, nothing else. Provide and protect.
You see, Dr. Phil, it goes
Provide
back
means
to
you
us breaking.
work, and make sure say all the bills pay and everything. And protect means that if a man cross the border, you know, you say you have to do what you have to do. Protect your family. But the softer part of things get shoved under the carpet. You don't get that lesson at all.
Dr. Phil, you see,
Go ahead, Davian.
we have to be the agents of change in such a scenario. We have to break the cycle from here. We are the ones that we notice these problems, and as I say, modern problems, modern solutions. You get me? Because chances are a lot of these things we're not affecting them as they are now. Because as I said before, the women were staying. See, Mr. Shaw said he was working. I mean, DJ KTE said he was working. You get me? You have to try and find that balance. You understand? Because you can't marry to your work, unless you're gonna be single. You get me?
And Davian, to your point, I realize that today's women, and I'm probably asking one of these gentlemen to address that as well. Today's women, they are different in their culture, where they're cultured. Now, women today are, opposed to the old women, are more into careers and that kind of thing, right? And more independent, which is fine. And I think that at the same time, you have the need to be independent. So a lot of times, they do become dependent. So a lot of times, the male who feels strong and empowered to be the protector and provider is not that significant anymore, because I got this on I got my own car, I got my own, pay my own bills, like those some of these big singers, pay my own bills. And so then again, now they also are dealing with the social media, which validates them every single day. You put a post, hey, you're hot, you're nice, you're pretty, oh, it's wonderful. So now you compete with that media, social media, that's constantly telling how nice they are and how pretty they are and how beautiful they are. So you got to make sure you keep up your stuff to be one to make sure that she feels empowered and feels loved and that kind of thing, while you're working as well.
But DJ KTE, if I have a man in my life,
yes,
that caters to those kinds of needs, I would not need to really feel validated by social media, because I have a man in my life that validates me regardless of what social media is saying. Social media is like probably the icing on the cake. So yes, I'm an independent woman. Yes, I make my own money. I pay my own bills. And yes, I agree with Davian. Different times, modern women, the needs are different. There is nothing wrong with submission. There is nothing wrong with being the wife. I am a wife. But at the end of the day, women need that kind of a support from a man.
So in other words, you're saying if a man is safe today, he's working, he's busy away, use a text phone, use a text message, use your WhatsApp, use your caller. I mean, check with her, see how she's doing. So
everything is about balance. Everything is about balance. You balance everything. You have to have balance. Yes, I know you're out there working, you're making that money, and yeah, I know that the women understand this, but there has to be balance. And I think that is what Philroy had alluded to.
I agree.
There has to be some kind of balance. Support her, engage her in whatever you're doing. Yes, you're out there working, I'm at home, and so on. We need to feel as if we're a part of the relationship as well. So the argument cannot just be, okay, I'm out there making that money for you. There has to be some kind of there has to be some kind of community. There has to be some kind of conversation around the relationship. It cannot always be like that.
Okay.
So I'm saying, so that's why I asked the question, and I want the guys to answer this question. Did you see the signs before? Because very few women just get up and leave a man like that. There are signs.
Okay.
So is it a case where you saw the signs, you didn't see the signs, you're surprised by the signs? Yes, Gary, go ahead.
So here's the thing. I don't know. You might have to do a part 2, 3, 4, and 5.
I think so. I think so.
Because here's the thing. I saw the signs, and that's what I was able to, convey to her. That a lot of what would take place if adjustments weren't made. But at that time, she was basically saying that she's a work in progress, which means now I need to extend patience. However, I don't want to demonize her, because nobody has it all together, But for the most part, I was a friend first. And there are times during the course of the relationship, friend to marriage, where the husband had to, sit for a minute and the friend step forward, and there were cases where the friend had to maybe stand alongside with the husband, and some cases where the husband had to, just stand and the friend relax for a little bit. But interesting point that you made. However, the issue is not always the man. And not to make it, and also in reference to men, we don't listen. We have a listening issue. I don't think it's a gender thing. I think it goes both ways. Women and men do it.
I agree. Right? I agree with you totally.
So, but I think men and women, they have been so emotionally scarred, which is, it's a tough pain to get over, in many cases. And a lot of issues that I can say that I've seen in that marriage and previous relationships were internal. So, you can say, oh, babe, I'm going here. No matter how much you communicate with this person, this is what you're doing. Once that person is insecure, not because of what you are doing, but because of their own internal in insecurities, it's never going to fix those things until their mind is renewed. And you keep seeing things the same way, you're gonna end up feeling the same way. How you see things is what's gonna cause it to affect you the way that it does. And some relationships, people, they're okay with like having open relationships, they and it works for them. Whereas relationships get, people break up because this one went and did whatever. It doesn't make a difference whether it was done behind your back or you're aware of it. It's still happening. So it's they choose to accept whatever it is that they're right, but so I'm not bitter, and I was never bitter. But did I go through like the human side of me? Yes, I felt everything that any human being who is in touch with their feelings would feel. Disappointed, yes, and hurt to a degree, but not to the point where it's like it's just being like it's the reality that is unfolding. And it's like, for example, what I was doing was like, the family thing. And, for me, it's like I made the sacrifices. I run a studio, I travel as a musician. So now she goes to work, and, I'm dropping the kids off. I'm picking the kids up. They get out at different times. I'm going to my studio. By the time I sit down sometimes to do work, it's like, oh man, can you bring the kids to the doctor or the dentist? I didn't realize I forgot the appointment and blah, 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 blah. But because I'm flexible in my schedule or whatever, it's like, okay, to the point that I stopped taking sessions because I'm like, it's unfair for people to book their time and then I'm running off to go pick up kids and do certain things or whatever. So that was a sacrifice on my part. With that, I'm going to say those sacrifices weren't necessarily consistently being seen as a sacrifice in order to even, appreciate them.
Got you.
Because you have short-term faith and you have,
I
faith,
got you.
different measures. So it's not that she's not aware. She knew, and she know what it felt like when I was extending those things, which is why, there was like a push for marriage. And I'm like, I think we should wait. It's like, you don't think I deserve to be married too? And it became like always the victim, for her. And it's like,
I got you.
Okay, you want to do this? Like, I see what's going to happen, but at the same token, I don't want to be that selfish to the point where I'm okay because I see this and I discern or, know that, okay, that is going to happen and that is going to happen. If this continues, then, I'm going to just take control. No, there's certain things that I allowed her to, okay. And she did what she did. And when the repercussions or, things start to happen, it's kind of like, oh, I don't like how this feels. And then it's like you're tied to the chair and then being penalized, for not being able to get up.
I got you. I want to hear from Barry. I want to hear from Pastor Francis, and then I want to move into some comments because I don't want to leave my viewers out. Viewers, I see your questions. I see your comments. I want to highlight them, but I want to hear from Barry. I want to hear from Pastor Francis also. So, just briefly, what's your thought on the signs, and then we move into questions from the audience because I want to go through them.
Francis. Yeah. Okay. Oh, Barry, it's okay. Good, Barry. I saw you started.
To answer the question, what she said about did you see signs when it was happening at the time, right? But just picture this, okay? Picture you being 30 years old. Mm-hmm. You're making about $10,000 a month. Mm-hmm. You built a home for your family. You moved your family, you built a home in Florida for your family. You live in New York doing business, okay? Mm-hmm. So I'm back and forth. I have no time to see any signs. Picture also, you never had a mentor. You never had a father who could show you how to be a man to your wife and your family. So you had to learn that on your own. Picture that, right? So here I am making this kind of money at this young age, going back and forth, building my home, sending money to my family, knowing that my wife is taken care of, my kids are taken care of. At that time, I thought that's the most important thing in the world. Like the gentleman said, we was about taking care of our family. That's what I was taught that, not by a father. I was taught that by a neighbor. Okay, so these are the things. So I wasn't able to see any signs at the time. And if there were signs, I was pretty much ignoring it because it was not relevant because I figured I'm making the money. I'm taking care of the kids. I'm taking care of my wife. I ain't worrying about no signs. Later on, you learn after divorce and everything, you grew up.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to be the type of man. I learned to see signs now. I learned to understand. Now I could mentor. Now I could teach my two sons about the signs and how to be the man and not just make the money that you do. Yes, I have degrees. Yes, I'm an entrepreneur. But at the end of the day, that didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
What you have to do, I have to get back to myself, find myself, do my prayers to God, start
Yes.
teaching and learning, listening to the words of God, and start becoming the man I need to become. So now today,
Got you.
2020, I'm a better person, meaning that I could be able to mentor people. I could teach my sons. I could listen. I could hear signs, and I could really understand now. So that's where I was at that
Beautiful
point.
thing. That's a beautiful
That's
thing, brother.
real powerful. Pastor Francis,
Yeah,
your
yeah,
few words.
yeah, definitely. And you can call me Justin, by the way, too. You know, you don't gotta say
All
Pastor.
right,
I
Justin.
appreciate the respect, but
We holding you accountable, man. We holding you accountable.
Listen, if you go down, it's you, man. If you go down, it's you,
but
Pastor.
yeah, I mean, marriages are
Okay, Justin.
as unique as fingerprints, man. And you know, one thing I've kept hearing. I mean, there are definitely signs like relationships I've had. Usually, I knew when it was heading for the end, just because that's just
Yeah.
how it shaped out for me. It was like, oh, okay, this, you know, and a lot of times I knew, you know, I knew some of the girls I was with, like, I'm really not in it for marriage. I'm in it for having fun or getting out, you know, at that time, you know, where I was at, you know, I'm not that person anymore, but being younger, dumber, you know, sometimes you date for what you could get out, sometimes to be popular, you know, you're in high school, peer pressure, all that kind of stuff. But once I, you know, became an adult, it wasn't really about that as much. But I keep hearing the theme. I like some of what, you know, even what Phil Roy was saying, and even what Barry was just talking about, like that lack of guidance and mentors. Like I went through that, Phil Roy, as well. Like nobody saying nothing, you know, no one's mentoring you, training you up. Then as soon as you start messing up, something go wrong. Boy, let me tell you, say, you know, all that stuff start happening. And it's like, wait, where were you to train me up on how to do this? Or if your marriage fails, oh yeah, I knew he was trash. Or I knew. And it's like, oh, where are these mentors? And you know, I encourage like what Barry's doing, where it's like, I'm gonna take you under my wing and I'm gonna teach you, I'm gonna mentor you before you go down a certain road, you know. And I think
Okay.
some people say experience is the best teacher, and I heard another quote say, no, experience is the teacher of fools, because someone else will look at what someone else has experienced and learn from what that person experienced and not go through the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yes, there were many signs that I've seen in my own life, but I try to reach out to others, and I encourage those who've been down that path to whether it ended up well or bad, good or bad. All you brothers, we all have these stories. Like, yeah, reach out and teach, you know, so that others can grow and not just be left alone to kind of walk down certain paths.
All right.
Gentlemen, you
I want
are.
to go straight into our comments because we are almost out of time. But our viewers have been chiming in and they are listening to you guys and they are loving the conversation. So, Flawless Rain, she made a comment on YouTube and she was saying, men these days don't pay attention to their wives' feelings. So that's one comment. There is another comment from Shane Haslam that says, over the years, men get so much beating for messing up relationships. Who is teaching them? Who speaks to them? How often is a men's conference kept? How does a man know uh how does a man know who they are? And society teaches men to be quiet and not to speak up. However, I think this generation of men are now speaking out. There was another comment from Alexine Waite that says sometimes women can be selfish too, thinking an entire relationship revolves around them. And there are comments there that Suzanne, good night, Suzanne. She was saying as well that no matter what signs you see, when it hits you, it hits. So no matter what the signs are, when separation comes, it hits. But there's a question that I want to ask you, men around the table tonight, and the question is, where do, in terms of separation and its effects on you as men, where do you go to heal? What do you do? I know some men, they go to the rum bar, some men talk to friends, but as you being healing, I hear Barry talking about, growing up and being older and being wiser, and how do you heal? How do
And,
you
and gentlemen,
how do you get out of that, rut and that growth of that hurt and that pain? Do you stay there? Do you let it fester? How did you get there to heal? And how would you encourage a man, your brother, tonight,
Well,
how to past, probably the
so
feeling of
so
anger and all of that?
so listen, that's a big question there. But gentlemen, we're winding down, so keep it like a minute short. Let's keep it real tight so we can hear from everyone, okay, if possible.
Yeah.
well,
Thanks.
for me, the entire time, there were scriptures that I personally, would stand up on. I knew that I wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against, principalities and, rulers of darkness and spiritual wickedness in high places. So I always knew that there's, always going to be someone the enemy would try to use to hinder my, my
Progress.
purpose. And,
Okay.
I'll put it like this: your gift, like, I didn't take it personal because I understand, that it's who I represented, and which is, Christ. Now, the purpose of the gift is the purpose of the gifting is to edify the body of Christ and for the perfecting or the maturing of the saints. So when I don't operate in my area of gifting, I do you and everybody else an injustice. And likewise, in reverse. So, the scriptures were my thing. And also when I, after that situation and, I left, I mean, I was doing things, under the quiet. But those were the things that, had me feeling fulfilled. And, there were also confirmations, when I would do these things, people would be, I remember I was setting up the sound for a conference, and a homosexual guy walked in and he was like, he had to come in because he heard the quality of the audio from the lobby area. I understood what he was saying though, because at this time my wife wanted me to sell all the equipments, and because it serves no purpose because she's not getting the money and blah blah blah. She didn't want me to invest into my my business or sound system. I've done stuff for Tasha Cobbs and a couple of people, Judah Jacobs or whatever. Right now, I've never put out an advertisement for these things, but these are the things that I would refer to as confirmation from, it's like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You know what I'm saying? And the guy, I understood what he was saying. He was referring to the anointing he felt. But how many times that somebody, usually there's a preaching or singing or something that is happening, but not sound quality that somebody could say, they felt the anointing. And he came in and he spoke to me. He don't realize what he was, saying to me, but I got the revelation, and it was like a twofold situation. However, go ahead.
Interesting.
Sorry.
Boy, I tell you, we're going to definitely need a part two. This is because this is so big, man. It's a real big topic. Anyone that want to take a stab at it real quick? That's about a minute or so. And the same question that Lady Misty asked.
Yeah, for me, definitely, the Word of God, the Scriptures, the Bible. I'm there. The church, God's people, people who've been there before, not being afraid to say, hey, been married X, Y, and Z time, 40, 50 years, whatever. Hey, tell me, what have you done? Reading books, music. I make music as well, production, rap, and listen to music. So things like that have helped me. So it's a quick answer.
Wow.
Okay.
Roy.
See, music is very popular in these things. As a person in the business as well, I mean, it helps a lot. What works for me is it is almost along with the spiritual aspect that you guys mentioned already. I don't want to go over that, but to add to that, learning more. I use the time to, most times I bury myself in work, and during those times, you just expand your knowledge, because you have this thing that you're passionate about outside of the relationship, and when you focus, you use it to focus. Because if you don't, everything else is going to come crumbling down. You lose business. You can't focus on anything. So I try to zero in on this thing that I'm passionate about, and if it means I'm going to learn something new, then I take on the challenge to learn something new inside of that, and that kind of carries through as a until you're able to talk about how you're truly feeling and how much you have gotten over it so far.
Nice.
Okay.
Barry?
Davian?
All right, so everybody keeps saying like music and like drowning yourself in work, but for me that that was a disaster, because my work is love, and I can't go to a wedding after coming out of a relationship and being heartbroken and seeing this love. It was a piece of work, honestly. Like having back-to-back weddings and like for me, it was just time, honestly. And it's still a thing that is processing just the same. You understand? Each day, what I really did was took the time and I had to learn about myself independent of that person, because we've been together so long that everything involves them. You get me? So I had to take a step back, or several steps back, and just learn about me. And time was the master in that. Honestly, it took quite a bit of time, I can tell you that much. But it was time for me. Just reasoning with myself.
Wow.
Okay.
Barry, you go right ahead, and I'll say something after you, Barry, and just kind of close it out.
Okay, what I did, I just went back to school. I moved away from my family and I moved to a different place, and I went back to school. I did my master's. I just drowned myself into my school. I just drowned myself, crammed, studied hard every day, took my mind out of that. And that's what I did to really get over it. But I didn't get over it right away. It took a while to get over it. So, I mean, it was a combination of going out with my family, being more closer with my family, like my mom and my brother and my cousins, and also just drowning myself in my education. And that's what I did. It took a while to get over, but I did. You know what I'm saying? It was all good.
Wow. As a man, I'll say this, son. You guys really said some powerful things tonight. So I'm sure things that we can glean from and learn from. And I'm sure, we know over 64 countries and people listening, different cultures, different backgrounds. But I think there's one commonality here, and that we feel, we hurt, we grow, and we all have experiences. I think that the Black men in particular has been beaten down over the years. They've gone through a lot of mess, a lot of stuff that has caused anger and caused a lot of self-hate and just pain. And as we fight in this world, dealing with the economic pressure and dealing with the social pressure and dealing with the systematic racism and the whole agenda against Black families and Black men, knowing that we're powerful men, it has some degree affected us. It has impacted us. And I think that as we talk more and communicate more, I think we'll definitely see growth. The reality is that as a man, I know that there's a beginning, there's an ending, and in the middle, there's always some things going on. But I think we should focus on how we're going to finish this race, how we're going to end this race. And for me, that's where the God comes in, where His wisdom, where His power, when that's infused in me and give me that wisdom. Like when God, like Solomon, what do you want? He didn't say riches, He didn't say money. He said wisdom. Give me the wisdom. And I think that as we seek that and open ourselves, we'll be able to affect our families, our women, and ourselves, and just have a better outcomes. But you men tonight were great. You guys were transparent. Y'all spoke up. Y'all really shared from different perspectives. Mr. Philroy, Mr. Barry, Mr. G. Higgins, and my artist over there. I gotta forget your name. The artist, man, the cameraman. Davion, thank you.
Yeah.
You guys
I want to go
fantastic.
around the table one more time, DJ
Yeah.
KTE.
Yes,
And as a woman, I'm just sitting here and just taking in all the information, and it's refreshing listening to a man's point of view. And men, I want you to answer me with one word, okay? One word. I'm going to ask a question and I want you to answer me with one word. How can I, and when I say I know, I'm being general, I'm speaking on behalf of the women. How can I, as a woman, support you during a time of, hurt, pain? How can I support you through your process of healing?
I don't think it can be a one-word thing.
Patience.
Honestly, I don't know.
Patience.
Word,
So I heard one word from
patience.
Philroy. Patience. Yeah.
David,
I'm listening.
David said he don't
I'm
think it can
listening
be
if I
one
hear
word,
the
but
word sex. I want to see if the word sex will come out. But yeah. Okay.
No,
So I
for
heard
me, it won't be
patience.
sex, honestly. Sex can go on.
Okay.
Truly.
All right.
But patience probably would be like
The word.
patience
Even
or
sex can go
understanding.
on.
Patient
No,
understanding.
sex not gonna fix this.
So
Sex not gonna fix
David
this.
says pain, patient and understanding.
I have one word.
After you come in, you either come like drunk. When you try to look feet at the bottom of the buckle, after you don't drink the buckle, you go back to reality, Or after you come back to the
One word, guys. One word.
Love it. Part two coming up ahead. Part two coming
All
up.
right. I'm going to invite all of you back here next week, okay?
I have one word.
All right.
I have one word.
Okay.
This.
All right.
I have one word. Help.
Oh my God. Help. Okay. I'm going to have to ask my producer to invite all of you back here next week because we have to do a part two.
We have to. This is good. We got it.
My one word is respect.
Respect. Okay. I like that. So patience, respect, help. And I heard this.
Help.
This means series. That's another one word. Series.
Yeah, series. Okay, great.
Well, gentlemen,
oh my God,
you have been listening
guys,
to
thank
UME
you
Radio.
so much.
On Let's Talk Relationship, guys. This is UME Radio. Remember to get the app. Go to your Play Store. Go to your Google Store, and get the app. Listen, by the way, the app is crazy. You got to check the app out. It's different. It's the most unique app you'll ever see in your entire existence, guys. You got to go to get that app and pass on the word. It's just amazing. But
all right.
Again, gentlemen,
thank you to all my guests tonight. Thank you to my thank you for those on YouTube that passed through and made your comments. Thank you for all of you who tuned in tonight. You know, we can't do without your company. So great job, everybody. Gentlemen, we meet back around this table next week. So clear your calendars. You're coming back.
That's right.
You're coming back for part two. Thank you for coming. You're listening to UME Radio. You're welcome. Good night.
God bless you, brothers.
Let's talk
Relationships on UME Radio.
So what are we talking about?
Marriage, dating, parenting, business,
And love, emotions, sex.
it's a conversation with me, Lady Misty,
And DJ KTE.
on everything from hot topics to taboos.
Join us Mondays at 9 p.m. live on UME Radio.
Follow us at Let's Talk Relationship Show on Facebook or on Yumi Radio on Instagram. Let's talk relationships, arguments for the grown.
Get the UME Radio app to listen wherever you are. That is UME Radio, one word.
UME Radio. Positive entertainment 24/7. Subscribe on YouTube and click the notification bell.